We all know the Steam Deck, released sometime in 2020, was an amazing handheld, being able to play some pretty lightweight games, obviously nothing demanding. You can play Ghost of Tsushima, all that other crap, but pretty low settings. Then Valve released the Steam Machine, which I don't have, because that is $1,000. I don't have $1,000. Because of the base 512 GB model, it comes out around $1,049, which doesn't even include the controller. So if you wanted one, it'd cost you about $100 if you didn't get the bundle, but if you did, it'd only be an extra $79. Before the official announcement, most people expected this Steam Machine to cost somewhere around $800, $900, but with current RAM prices, that price range has become increasingly unrealistic. Before the release date of the Steam Machine. According to Valve engineers, the original target price is around $750. And the date came, prices was released, and it wasn't really too well received, but understanding just because of those DRAM prices. But obviously, like I said, I don't have $1,000 to spend on a Steam Machine, so instead I'm just gonna see if I can build a cheaper one, and we'll see if it can like step up or fight with the Steam Machine. So what are the specs of the Steam Machine? Well, they haven't really shared all information, like exact like what is the CPU comparable to. So what we have is it's a Zen 4 processor with 6 cores, 12 threads. It boosts up to 4.8 gigahertz. The GPU is a semi-custom. It's based off AMD's RDNA 3 tech architecture. Its performance is roughly comparable to an RX 7600 or an RTX 3060. It has 8 gigs of VRAM, which is pretty hard to run most games that high at 4K. But with the help of upscaling like DLSS or FSR, it should make it somewhat possible, which is what they advertised on their website. It also has 16 gigabytes of GDDR5 at 5600 megahertz. That is, I believe, in single channel. It is user upgradable along with its SSD. So, got an RTX 3060. I have an ITX motherboard. It's got a Ryzen 3 3700X. Not Ryzen 7. Jesus Christ. It is, I believe, Zen 2, which is older, but it has, I believe, 8 cores, 16 threads. On a budget ITX motherboard, so there will not be any overclocking because the VRAMs are not really cooled. It does support DDR4, which is still pretty cheap to buy used. Buying it new is a little difficult. I also do have 16 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance Pro DDR4 clocked at 32,000 megahertz. And then to power it, very on the edge 500 watt Apevix felx power supply. I say that because the 3060 alone pulls 200 watts. I believe the CPU is around 65, but obviously under load like gaming, we're really pushing it. Obviously some fans. Gotta have some airflow. And you're probably wondering how much storage? Well, I only have 256 gigs with, on the back of this, I have a 1 terabyte SSD for games. Now you're probably wondering, hey, that motherboard, it's 170 by 170. It's way bigger than the Steam Machine, which is about 152 by 162 by 156. So many numbers, but that is a very, very small case. So I found on Principles by user 3DCat they made a SFF mini ITX Steam Machine case. He has two versions, one where it was kind of where the GPU were at an angle inserted. This one's more like standard size where everything's flat and stacked. That is a 200mm by 200mm case. That's why I had to do a custom GPU shroud for it. The cover, front plate. Here we go. Rear plate, front plate. We can see that it's got stuff for USB. I also have the front fascia cover. So you can see where that power button goes right here. This is what he recommended, was a pretty tactile button, and USB 3 cables for internal routing. But you probably would notice once this cover's on, there's no real airflow for the GPU, so it would overheat. So I designed a prototype that has like a mesh covering on it. This is like leftover filament. But when I finished designing and printing it, 3D Cat released one with airflow vents, which looks way nicer. And I used fuzzy skin to give it a nice little texture. I also realized, since my GPU is too long and I had to make a custom shroud for it, I had to redesign it. So now I have a cutout for it. So the heatsink part fits right through. You'll see it when it gets assembled and everything. I also got rid of the extra holes and made the hole smaller for a 120mm fan. Here's the bottom cover as well with airflow. And then the issue with this one is this would interfere with the GPU because of the power cable is going to be blocked by the power supply. So I redesigned that as well, where obviously I shrank the hole for a 120mm fan, rotated it so the power supply would go in. So those are the parts for the case. Again, still pretty big, but it's pretty small. So now we can move on to assembly. Now he wasn't really specific on screws, so I just had some laying around. Prep the panels for their fans, USB 3, and power button. And there's these bracket parts. So first I'm gonna get this fed through. This is a spacer for the power button. And this bracket is for the USB 3. Make sure these are put in right. Goes right underneath. And I have some, I believe they're M3 power button can get threaded through the hole. It doesn't get screwed in. It's just kind of there. It doesn't really come out either. It'll get pressed up against the board. And then we can get, so I'm using a Noctua NFP12 Redux. pretty much look like that. This part is done. Like this real quick. Set this aside. Prep to the back side. And again, just insert the fans ahead. Filling up the holes. And then my modified files will be posted on printables, and the link will be in the description below. Just like that. Set that aside. Okay, the motherboard tray. Now, gotta line up the holes, and I'm using like PC motherboard screws. Just like that. Get our RAM installed. Make sure the latches are down. Wrong way. There we go. Now, the SSD I was going to install in here was a Cybernet 256 gig. However, during testing, it did get too hot and it's dead. So instead, I have a spare 2230 512 gigabyte SSD I had for my Steam Deck before I upgraded it to 1 terabyte. I did 3D print an adapter for it since this motherboard doesn't support 2230. Now, to keep it from not killing itself with heat, is I have a Noctua, I think it's a 40 millimeter by 20 millimeter fan. I printed off these duct pieces so there's airflow to that SSD and it doesn't cook it, just like my trusty SSD here. Next, we'll install the GPU. Just like that. We can already see kind of how compact it is. So now we can set that aside. This and our I/O. Make sure it's put on the right way. Like I said, I just had screws lying around. There we go. I wouldn't tighten them all the way just because it is plastic and it's pretty much tapping itself into that hole. And we can plug in our fan into the header right there. Kind of just tuck it away. And then we have another screw we can use to hold the GPU down. Just like that. Nice and compact. Now we can bring in our side panel. I like to have it off. Put in our power button and LED switch right into our headers. And then the USB 3.0 cable go right in, just like that. And our fan, just have it kind of set to the side there. And then I used the same screws that I did for the rear. So that's fine. You can kind of see where that GPU sits. It's just perfect. See where that duct will get some airflow into that CPU or that SSD. Plug in our front fan, just like that. And we can move on to plugging in power cables. Now, that should have been done before, but I somehow forgot. But they still go in. I'll take this off for the time being because it has to go just like that. There, CPU power, and then GPU. And we can have our power supply. Plug all these cables in. Just like that. Or take it away. It's gonna keep coming off. We can screw in. Power supply. Now you can see how compact everything is. Nice compact build. Cover on. So there's 4 screws on every corner. I'll show you. So there's that fake puck. Slots into this hole right here, and it'll go into that hole. Like so. And here's that front cover. I did it in PETG clear. And do the final 4 screws. A completed steam machine. So we're going to be testing out God of War. Show you graphic setting. My graphic settings here. Pretty much everything is at 1080p. DLSS set on balance. Sorry if you get a little whine. I can't test it in 4K either just because of the capture card I have. Presets are set to high. And yeah. You can see that we're at 60 FPS. I had to lock it at 60 just for the GPU to not overwork itself going over 60 FPS since that's what the monitor is locked in at 60 Hertz. And it may look a little choppy, that's just the capture card. In person it is a smooth 60. Looking at temps, we can see hovering around 5 for CPU and 74 for GPU. Using about 6 gigabytes. RAM is also at 11.0 gigabytes. You can see I'm kind of getting confused here. I haven't played God of War in a bit. Does look a little confusing, and that's just the way I play it. But overall, the system is pretty good. To the 50s, depending on how much is going on in the scene.
things thinking about divorce.
And I told you not to speak.
What are you doing? I'm gonna level it! There are no parachutes! I know! Get ready to jump! No fucking way! Don't know we have to! Are you out of your fucking mind, Laura? We have no choice! I'm not jumping out of this plane!
So these are the benchmarks I performed. I only did 3 games just because that's what had built-in benchmarks. We can pretty much see that the Steam machine and the DIY machine are pretty much on par. Obviously, you can see Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 4K Ultra is slightly better than the Steam machine with it at also 4K Ultra. We can see Cyberpunk's the same, and Marvel Rivals 4K Ultra is pretty much the same. In 1080p, it beat the Steam machine or my DIY machine. Same thing with Marvel Rivals. We did beat it with Cyberpunk at 45 FPS versus the 33 FPS.
A rock hit my leg.
Don't move, I'll get help.
No, I'm right on Trinity's tail. I don't want to attract attention.
I'm on my way.
I won't be long.
Konpeki Plaza heist. Supposed to transform your life, wasn't it? Mark the beginning of the end instead, huh? Both the Emperor and a lowly Haywood pawn met their...
V? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, whoever you are.
Good. It worked. My name is Somi. Just call me Songbird, though. I know who you are. Know your situation, your problem. And I can save your life.
All right, Songbird. Got my full attention.
Glad to hear that. You must have questions, and I'll answer them in due course, shortly. But first, I need you to get to that swollen appendix of Night City called Dogtown.
Dogtown. Chunk of Pacifica, ex-territorial. Lord of the Lands, one Kurt Hansen. International arms dealer. Corpos give it a wide berth. I skip anything?
Nope. More or less on the button.
Fine.
I'm not afraid of
No
anyone.
clue what I'm stepping into, but no risk, no reward.
Thank you. I appreciate this, truly.
Uh-huh.
Dogtown's main gate. Be there as soon as you can. I'll make contact again then.
This is one elaborate haze. Or a fucking lifeline.
So how much was my Steam machine? Well, the CPU was $60, the motherboard was $80, RAM was $70, the GPU was $224, the power supply was $50, and the cooler was $30. Now I'm not really going to count the price for the 3D printed parts that I did myself, but total comes out to $514, way below the Steam machine's MSRP. It does have a Steam controller though, which I am mad about because I am on the 2027 waitlist.